You know, like I said, it happens, and hopefully some kids can learn from it, but just don't get caught.
I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk. This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
We say this is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
Are you a big oat brand guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
Do you have a gallon of milk I can also take home?
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht, we're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
Hey, Al. Thanks for filling in last week. I thought you did a great job.
Thanks. Who would you have taken number one overall?
Oh boy, it's such a such a great field. I don't know. I don't know that I would have taken Micic number one. I don't know, because like my thought is I want like some potential,
Yeah.
in this player, like some upside.
And there is none.
And there's none. Like Max Christie, is that like the highest upside player?
He wasn't even available, so no. You could have had Max Lewis.
Max Lewis. Yeah, I mean, I might have taken, if like a rookie like that was unprotected, I might just take a rookie.
Yeah.
And just see. But Max Lewis probably not the guy. I honestly would have really thought about Trey Mann. Just because I think he's not only like a guy that I think could really, if Trey Mann is going to work out, it's going to be because he gets an opportunity, like an expansion team that is just going to not be great, and he's going to get to take 20 shots a game.
Yeah.
And that's where I think he could become like the Jordan Poole, like type of player that we think he can be. I don't think he can be within the confines of a team where he's like, hey, you got 3 shots tonight. You better make, 1 or 2 of them. And if you don't, you're going to sit down, and I'm not saying that's what they're saying, but I just think that if Trey had like the freedom to just go and create, and we know that he's got like this ridiculous step back and that he can handle the ball and he can do a lot of things. So I honestly would consider Trey, just because I don't like who else out there in that pool could be somebody that could score 20 a game.
KPJ, my first selection, obviously.
Yeah.
Scored 50 once upon a time.
KPJ is an interesting one. I just culturally would never take him.
Well, you're wrong. He's a leader now, and he's leading the guys, and he loves being in a leadership position. He's just not playing point guard anymore.
Yeah.
That's the only
Sure.
difference.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I don't know, I mean, I haven't listened to it yet, but Bill Simmons and Russillo did an expansion draft.
Yeah.
And they just did it incorrectly.
Copycats. Yeah. They did do it incorrectly. I listened to about half of it, and
yeah, because
back up.
like Quentin Grimes was the number 1 overall pick. There's no way he would ever be unprotected.
There's zero chances he would ever.
If you do it correctly. Same thing with Kenrich Williams. It was the 2nd overall pick. Never is going to happen. Xavier Tillman was 4th. He's not eligible.
Yeah,
not eligible.
Not eligible.
So they just didn't do it correctly, and as a result, it's bad. Okay, it's bad.
And we're going to
please listen to ours for the most accurate one, and we're actually going to do an even more accurate one.
We're going to get even more accurate. We're gonna drill down on the Athletic NBA show. So for that, next Friday. So there's actually like a lot of prep that will go into making this a reality, and a lot of people that it's going to take to make it a reality. But we're going to make it happen. I think it's going to be really fun. I think that's going to be a really fun exercise. Okay. Al, rebuild, replenish, Hall of Fame nominations.
Yeah.
You wanna go first?
Sure. So far, we had pre-G League rookie Poku.
Yeah.
We had the Daniel Oturu game.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the Thursday pod. I feel like you don't need to say any more about any of those.
Yeah.
We all get it.
It's great.
This one's going to be a really positive one for me.
Okay.
And it was Shea's first game winner.
Yeah.
Because it was the first game of the season.
Yeah, the Hornets game.
Of that abbreviated season. It was on December 26th. It was the first game of the season. And it was in Charlotte. And Shea hit the game winner. What I forgot going back was that they had blown like a huge lead in the final couple minutes. They were up by 13. They were up 102-89 with 1 minute and 50 seconds to go. That part I did not remember. And Miles Bridges scored 11 of his 14 points in the final minute.
Miles Bridges.
Including a trio of threes in the last 25 seconds.
Wow.
And his final three tied it at 107 with 10.3 seconds left. And that's when Shea came up the floor, hit a jumper over Caleb Martin.
Hey.
I just felt like that was an important moment, especially for it to be the first game of the season, because we're coming off of that season with the 3-guard lineup. Now CP3's gone. Now Schroeder's gone. And we know that it's going to be Shea's team going into the season. And as good as he was in the previous year, he was also playing with like 2 really good point guards. 2 point guards who would go on to be starting point guards for other teams.
Yeah.
The Lakers and the Suns.
True.
And so for him to come right out of the gate and have a game like he did, because he hit the game winner, but he also had, let's see here. He had 24, 7, and 9 first game. I just thought that was like a really important moment. We're going to talk about a question later that was on Reddit, which was like, what was a opinion that was unpopular a few years ago, but is now widely accepted? And the first one came to mind, and a lot of other people suggested it, is kind of around this idea of how we thought about Shea, like where he might be in a hierarchy on a future good team.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good one, and we'll talk about that later. But this was a game where you got your first kind of glimpse of him running the show, him being the man, and him taking those type of shots that we would then see him take a lot more often going forward.
Yeah, it really was a great glimpse into the future for him. And it also felt like, no, we're supposed to lose these games.
Yeah. Going back through the like button of the box scores.
Yeah.
Because the game that I almost brought up, which isn't that memorable in retrospect, which is why I went this game, but they won 3 games in a row in their first 10 games. New Orleans, and then they went to New York, and Brooklyn, and beat them both back to back.
Yeah.
And that kind of both terrified us, because by that point they were now 5-4, and we were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But also that those 2 games kind of set off the like OKC is just amazing every time they go to New York theme, which has been a theme now for a couple years. But yeah, I went with the game winner because it's very memorable. This was back when we're just a few months from Top Shot popping off.
Oh my word.
And I remember that shot. I bought that shot as a moment, and it's probably worth a penny now, or perhaps a dime, but I think I still have it.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
I was thinking about Top Shot the other day too. Just remember how ridiculous it was? Like how much some of those moments are going for, like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, this is super embarrassing, but I'll tell it.
Okay.
So I didn't spend. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was the pandemic, so like nothing mattered. I did deposit $1,000 into Top Shot.
Wow.
And I bought stuff. There was a day when my Top Shot account was worth $17,000, and I did not do anything because in pandemic brain at that time, it just felt like this is going to go up forever. Ooh, these could be worth anything. That is not what happened, folks. Now, luckily, I did get out before I lost any money, so that was good. I actually made a little bit of money, but not as much money as some people did. And in retrospect, it's like, what did I think was really going to happen? Like 17,000? I thought it was going to go higher than that. I could have gotten like a new car at that time.
Yeah, new car,
A little buggy.
I think you thought you were going to pay for your kids' college education on these.
And I didn't have a kid at the time.
Yeah.
Now, there was a Down to Dunk listener who came up to me at one of the live shows. It was like, hey, you talking about Top Shot when you did ended up making me a lot of money. And he actually donated to a charity in my name because he had done that well.
Wow.
And yeah, so I'm glad somebody made out like a bandit. It wasn't me.
I made a little bit of money. I made like $1,000, so like nothing crazy.
I think that's exactly what I made.
Yeah. I did not dive as deep into it as you did. I had actually, the people at Top Shot sent me packs to open, and one of the packs they gave me had like a really valuable one in it, and that's the one that I sold. I think I still have a bunch of them. I have not looked at it in a long time, but
oh man. Maybe we should do a Top Shot stream like 3 years later. See.
Are you gonna open some packs?
The values will be like negative. Like we actually owe money by having these moments.
Why do I owe money on this Dort Top Shot now? Okay, I would like to make a nomination for an honorable mention that I don't necessarily. You can tell me if you think this should make it or not. I don't think it quite makes the cut. Vren's Blyenberg, I think, is a really funny one that I don't think would necessarily make the shirt, but I think is just a funny one in retrospect, just because he was like the second round pick that was like this like big European player that could kind of do a little bit of everything. Yeah. And then kind of what makes me want to nominate him are just the interactions that I personally had with him online. Like we DM'd quite a bit. He would ask me to send a screenshot of where he's going in mock drafts. He also he said, please tell Presty to take me. Message.
That's right.
And he came on the pod. And it was just a really funny one. Still not in the NBA. He went.
Was he even? Does anyone have his rights, or he is just? He's a free man.
I think he's a free man.
Okay.
So, anyways, that's one that I don't think would necessarily make it, but I think is hilarious. One I will.
Well, hold on a second. I was just reading his. I was on his Twitter. Whatever team he's playing for, he got the Finals MVP. Ostend.
Okay.
Yeah, they were the champs, the effing champs. He says here, he was the Finals MVP. Wow. So he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, good.
And now he's in Turkey, apparently.
Yeah, I heard there were some personality things with friends, which you may or may not could tell by the interactions that I had with him. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, my true nomination is.
Oh wait, really quick.
Yeah.
So somebody on Twitter called Harden UTD, which I'm guessing they're a Rockets fan. They posted like a tier of NBA fans. You know, like elite fans, mostly elite, average. Do they even have fans? And then delusional clowns. And this person put the Thunder in the delusional clowns category. Wow. Okay. Vren's quote retweeted it, said, come on now, OKC fans, better, greater sign. So he still loves us.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Hey, maybe Vren's will end up on the blue at some point.
Man, that is like a lifelong friendship that we somehow made with a guy that like wasn't even drafted by our team. He still loves OKC. That's great.
Yeah. So shout out to Vrenz. I don't know that he makes the shirt. Do you? I mean, I don't think he should. Do you think he should?
Probably not. Someone asked if Vrenz has a top shot. I don't think he does, unfortunately.
You're not going to get a Vrenz top shot. Okay, my true nomination is a moment that should have been of elation, but it was of intense frustration. And it is the Isaiah Roby game winner. This was against the Portland Trailblazers, March 28th, 2022. The Thunder are losing just tons and tons of games. It's great. I think they've lost. I think they've only won one game. They won against Orlando, but the last 13 games they've all lost. Great. We're on track. We are losing to this Portland Trailblazers team that is also trying to lose, and we're pulling it off. I mean, the Blazers are starting Keon Johnson, Brandon Williams, who had 25 and 12 in this game, Drew Eubanks, who had 27, 14, 3, 3, and 2 in this game.
Now the Suns' backup center.
That's right. Ben McLemore had 28 points off the bench. It was a perfect recipe just to lose the game. And somehow Isaiah Roby ends up with the ball at the end of this game and hits a 3 to win it. And fans were legitimately frustrated with him online, and it got back to him, and he was also what the heck? Why is everybody mad at me for winning this game for the Thunder? In this game, the starting lineup was Teo Maladone, Aaron Wiggins, Vit Krejci, Poku, and Isaiah Roby. Aaron Wiggins had 28, 5 and 6 that night. Teo had 23 points, 10 boards, 5 assists in this game. Roby had 38 and 4 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. We had Olivier Sarr, Lindy Waters, and JRE coming off the bench. Maybe it should have been a little red flag that JRE got the least amount of minutes of all of these guys. Anyways, Isaiah Roby 3, because I just remember how crucial it felt. We're into late March. These games feel heavier than they did earlier in the season. And to win that game just felt gross. It felt frustrating. And so the Isaiah Roby game winner.
Yeah, I was at this game in person in Portland. And it was very funny because most Blazers fans were just rooting for the Blazers, but there were 2 guys in front of us and the guy I was with who were rooting for the Thunder because they understood the stakes for the Blazers as well and wanted them to keep tanking.
Yeah.
And so it just made for a very ridiculous game in our little section. But yeah, that game went into overtime. And what I always remember is there was a play, it was either at the end of regulation or at the end of overtime, where the Blazers could have tried to get a decent shot and just made 0 attempt. It was the most blatant tanking play I had seen. And I couldn't believe it. They weren't even really trying. It was a very lazy inbounds pass and then a few dribbles and then he shot it as if there was 0 chance. But if it was a normal game, they absolutely would have tried to throw it a little bit longer. They would have run something, and they did not run anything. They just wanted the game to end, and it was very upsetting watching it live because in my head I was like, okay, maybe they can still hit a miracle shot.
Yeah,
and they barely tried to do it.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating. But it was a fun game overall. It was one of the more fun games I've ever been to because it was so stupid.
Yeah. Great Babe asked, did you ride your bicycle home from that game? Or was that a different one?
I did not ride my bike. I rode my car, but our 2 friends that we were with rode their bikes, and my friend got hit on the way home by a car, and I just happened to be driving by at the exact moment. And so we pulled over, and she was fine and everything. But yes, it definitely heightened the experience of that night.
Well, you really will never forget that night.
Yeah, because we had to call the cops because she got hit and knocked her down, and then the person drove off. And the cops, if I remember correctly, the cops came and were like, "Oh yeah, we heard about this guy." So apparently he had done something else, and they eventually did get him. But
what in the world?
Because my friend actually got, now I'm thinking about it, she got something in the mail a couple of weeks ago that it's still ongoing because they put your name in the file and you get like updates on the case or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were asking her for some input on something. So yeah, I guess that's still going like 2 years later.
So weird.
Yeah.
Shout out to our buddy Brian Nix watching live from Bangkok.
Wow.
Nice.
What time is it in Bangkok? I love time
Let us-
zones.
Let us know about the time zones. Speaking of time zones, what about FIBA? Are you excited about some FIBA basketball, Al?
I would say I'm moderately excited. I'm not super interested in the U.S. team.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of guys that get me going. I think for
Yeah.
Knicks fans, we're probably super pumped.
They got
to see Jalen Brunson lead the team. I am excited for Canada, who does play today. They play at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 OKC time.
Yep.
I think they're playing Germany as like a prep game. They have 5 of them. I was looking at their schedule before the actual tournament starts.
Yep.
They seem very good. I mean, they have a lot of NBA players, especially if Jamal Murray plays, which it seems like he will. He just has to get back into shape. I saw a quote from him that was like, I did my first 2 a day and it was not good. But he's like healthy. He just needs to get in shape. And so you have him, SGA, RJ Barrett, Lou Dort. I mean, they got some guys. Trey Lyles, Corey Joseph. So yeah, I mean, I think Canada's going to be pretty good, and I'm kind of interested to watch them.
Yeah,
even more than if the select team had been the U.S. team, I would be like so much more interested in watching.
I know. Even like remove the Thunder players from it.
Yeah. If I was just watching like Cade and Jalen Green and Jalen Duren, like that's way more interesting to me.
Yeah, that kind of
than whoever I'm about to watch.
I know. I feel the same way. I mean, Anthony Edwards will be fun.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards is cool.
But like the rest of the group is just kind of like Jalen Brunson's a good player. Like, don't get me wrong, but boy, like that's not like that's your team leader. I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Mikal Bridges. I mean, all these guys are cool.
Good players, like very good players, like all-star level, very good.
I guess I just want more of a mix. Like someone like Walker Kessler got to make it. He's good, but like I would have rather some of the other like first and second year players make it. Yeah. I get that they're trying to like form a team that is actually a team.
Yeah, but they tried to do this in 2019. They got 7th place in the tournament.
Yeah, just all stars, max out stars.
Just take the players that are really good.
I wonder if they feel dumb too, having watched Cade in the practices. Be like, we probably should have just.
Well, no. Cade turned it down.
Oh, he did. Okay, okay.
Yeah. Cade, it was offered, and he turned it down.
He just wanted to embarrass them.
He just
in these pretend games.
Well, like somebody even like J-Dub, and I know that we're biased and we've seen J-Dub more than anybody else, but I just think a big, versatile player like that, I think is more valuable than a guy like Walker Kessler in a tournament like this. Like, how much are you really going to play Kessler? I think those versatile wings are way more valuable. So that's where I just don't quite get it.
But Jalen Brunson, Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Brandon Ingram, Triple J, like that. I mean, that's a good unit. I mean, they'll have good rotations.
Well, their group is really easy too. So like they'll win their group very easily. It's like what do they look like against Canada or even against Australia? Which our guy Olgun had put this article out today for ESPN Australia and wrote that on the Australian Boomers leaning all the way into Josh Giddey as its lead guard, that it's like, he said it's like Andrew Gaze, which is a Australian legend. He said that everything has to be built around Josh. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So that'll be definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
And then Garuba, gonna have to watch some Spain.
Hey,
see how Usman's looking.
You still feeling high on the Garuba supply?
Compared to my options? Yeah, I am.
Really nothing else is going on in the league right now. Like, we got FIBA. We're still waiting on a Dame trade, which will inevitably happen, and he'll inevitably end up on Miami. And
yeah, it's been nice. I've been loving it.
Yeah. So
It's nice
Yeah.
to just watch other things and do other things for a little while.
Yeah,
For
no,
1 month.
I'm with you. I'm not begging for things to happen. Okay. Anything else before we take a break and move on to our top 5 rewatchable games?
No.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we're back after that quick break. This next segment comes from listener Luke Stevenson, not Luke Stevens, Luke Stevens' son at our
Luke Stevens' son.
Luke Stevens' son. Luke has a son, and he is 13, and he's been hanging around for a while.
And he's a huge fan of the
He's a
show.
huge fan of the pod. No.
More than Luke. He actually listens to the other pods the rest of the week.
At our Luke _406 gave us this idea. So we are going to talk about the top 5 most rewatchable games from this past season. Al, do you want to go first? We can just kind of go back and forth.
Yeah. Luke is wanting to rewatch old Thunder games.
Luke's son, to be clear.
Luke's son. If this is something you want to do as well, we made a little list for you. And me and Andrew have not talked about this, so we kind of wanted to see which games. I think, in my opinion, Andrew, I think 4 of them are obvious.
Okay.
After I went through it.
Then we probably have some overlap.
Yeah. Unless you didn't include this one just because it wasn't in the season. But number 1, I'm going to start with the play-in game.
Yeah, this is on my list as well. It is highly rewatchable.
Yeah, that was probably the most important game. It definitely was the most important game of the season.
Yeah.
And the way they showed up in that game, where going into it, we just didn't really know what to expect because we're playing on the road against a team who has been to the playoffs recently when they played the Suns. And I just didn't know how it was going to go. And so many guys came out of that game with just flying colors, A+ across the board. I mean, Giddey was the big story because he had 31, 9, and 10 and got to the line 7 times.
And had never scored 30 points in a game ever before. And that was the one that he did. Yeah.
Dort obviously was amazing. He was 27 points with 4 threes.
Yeah.
And then Shea, who I kind of forgot his line was this good because in my head, I'm always thinking about Herb Jones when I think about the Pelicans, and who does play him very well.
Plays him great.
Shea had 32 points on 50% from the field, 8 of 8 from the line. So, I guess maybe for Shea, that was a little bit of a down game. He only got to the line 8 times. He got to the line double digits a lot of other times, but he still put up like an incredible line. Yeah, even though he was guarded by Herb Jones for a lot of that game. Mm-hmm. It was just a fun game because it came down to the end. It got nervy, and you worried like, oh no, is this the end of everything? And the fact that they were able to survive for one more game just made it so much fun.
Yeah, and Shea hit that baseline jumper.
Yeah.
That was just like, wow. That was kind of what iced the game. Jay Will had an incredible game too. He had 8, 8, and 8 in that game. And just contribute. Like he hit a big 3 down the stretch. He missed the rest of his threes, but he hit a big one down the stretch that really helped propel them. That was a big time game from them. They had a monster third quarter too. I think they were down heading into half, or it was like really close, and they had a monster third quarter, and then just kind of had to hang on. But like Ingram was really good. Valanciunas. Like that's what a lot of people were afraid. Like, is Valanciunas just going to eat in this game? He had 16 points, 18 boards, 3 assists. That was insane.
He did a little eating, but nothing that just
nothing
destroyed
crazy.
You.
Only had 9 attempts. I remember that was kind of a big deal that they only got him 9 shots, which is kind of like an ongoing issue if you talk to people that cover the Pelicans. Like they just don't go back to him in ways that maybe they should.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. That's one of mine. Another one of mine is this Thunder Blazers game. I don't know if this was on your radar.
It was is the one in December?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were 2 of them that were back to back.
December 19th. The Thunder won 123-121. And I have like a clip from this game that I just kind of shows you how crazy.
Down by a point. The ball is in the hands of Lillard. He'll move quickly, charges right down the lane. Oh, what a reverse for Damian Lillard to put Portland back on top. For SGA, Portland does have a timeout left to advance the basketball. Now we're tied at 119. One more for Shea. These calls just humongous. The charge, the turnover, and the second free throw is good to give OKC the 120-119 lead. Here is Lillard. Portland not using its timeout. Lillard going to work on Dort. Drives in. Had it pop up, and it's a turnover by the Blazers. And J-Dub is fouled. Play and run right into Lillard as J-Dub's first free throw is good. 2-point game. I'm a little surprised that Hart would be running in when he needs to be standing out on the three-point line.
Yeah, that's a good point. Trying to be able to come up with that loose ball, too, equally off the turnover by Lillard.
So Portland did not use its timeout. Now they will. But the free throw is missed. Lillard with the rebound, and there is the timeout. Winslow, the trigger man, to Lillard. Lillard going for the two on the reverse, and he spun it home. And it's a 121-121 game. Big thing here is where the Thunder catch this. Shea gets it, spins away, baseline shot. Shea puts it in and walks it off in OKC. Kissing the Blazers goodnight.
The Shea game winner was just, it's one that kind of gets forgotten a little bit for whatever reason. And the thing to me that stuck out that I remember from this game is just the way that Dame ended up like killing the Thunder was by going inside and like hit some just like impossible looking layups in this game to put the Blazers up in those moments. But big time shot there from Shea. Another like baseline fadeaway shot that's kind of going, I think it's kind of becoming his signature. He finished with 35 points, 2 boards, 6 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. Double digits from 6 other players, including J-Dub, Dort, Wiggins. Wiggins started in this game. Poku started in this game, didn't have double digits, but then Kenrich, Isaiah Joe, and Muscala all had double digits off the bench. This was also during the stretch of time where Darius Bazley was not playing games. We kept asking Mark about it, and it got a little awkward. Dame had 28 points. Anthony Simons had 19. Jeremy Grant had 26, 8 and 3 with 2 steals. Just a crazy ending to that game. Very rewatchable. Just like a very like dominant Shea performance.
And this is also a turning point in the season for both of these teams, actually, because Blazers came into this series against them, this 2-game series, 17-13.
Yeah.
They were still riding high from the beginning of the season. They had some game winners. They had that Jeremy Grant game winner. I think it was against the Suns. And like they were still feeling like really good. It's crazy that they were at this point. You forget the Blazers being good and being like a normal playoff team, and then the way they fell off. But the Thunder, like they were 11 and let's see, they were 11 and 18.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like
before.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before the Memphis game. So they won the Memphis game, and then they won both of these games back to back against Portland. So they had this 3-game winning streak. And you look at the rest of their game log, and that really did set it off, because before that Memphis game, they had lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, they're 11 and 18. I'm sure we were talking about tanking. And it felt like
didn't play in that Memphis game either. And it felt like,
yeah.
Oh man, like we are really going into tank mode. We're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes now. And then they won that game, and it was like, what the heck? And it was like 23 from Isaiah Joe, 24 from Dort. J-Dub only had 1 point in that game, which feels weird in 30 minutes. He was 0 of 8 from the field. You know, if you just said that sentence and said, hey, the Thunder are playing Memphis, who's starting Ja, Triple J, Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, and John Conchar, and there's no Shea, no Giddey, and J-Dub goes 0 of 8 from the field, you think like, oh yeah, they're going to lose. Like, but they beat them by a significant margin. I mean, it was just weird.
And it just felt like, and they did this multiple times last season, where you thought that it was, okay, now the turn is happening.
Yeah.
And then they would roll off a couple wins, and a lot of them were impressive wins. And you'd be like, oh, all right, well, never mind.
Yeah. we had to do that
like
so many
5 times.
so many times. Well, it was there was like weird patterns. I mean, even if you just go to like Basketball Reference and you just look at how they do the green and red like for wins and losses, there's just there's no consistency throughout the entire thing. I mean, it's just up and down and up and down and up and down, which is like basically just says like we're a young team that has a ton of talent and is obviously is like a good team, but still there's like just these really terrible rough patches. I mean, they lost 5 in a row after the All-Star break and like just couldn't buy a win. And then one of the games that they won I actually have it as a nomination here, but I'll circle back to you.
Okay, so the next one, another one that I think is obvious, so might as well get it out of the way, is the LeBron game. February 7th. This game was significant for a bunch of reasons. Obviously, LeBron was the reason anyone was watching because he was breaking Kareem's record. But for the Thunder, it was only their second national TV game, and the previous one, which is not going to make this list, at Miami, was maybe the worst game of the season. I mean, it was close, but it was miserable.
Eugene Omoruyi in that game at center,
and Jimmy just destroyed us by 1,000 paper cuts. Just one free throw after another.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard to watch. You felt bad because you get to that game and you're like, finally, the world is going to get to see this Thunder team and how much fun they are. This is going to be great. And then it became one of the most boring games of the season.
Yeah, Luke, do not watch that game. This game, though, man, this is a great game because, let's ignore. I mean, this game was way bigger than the Miami game nationally. And for them to play the way they played in this game, while also having to like withstand this extended stoppage of play when LeBron finally broke the record, and to come back and still close it out. And everyone played well. Like Giddey had 20, J-Dub 25, SGA 30. All 3 of those guys shot over 50% from the field.
Yep.
Jay Will, and this was one of his kind of early games playing significant minutes, getting 14, 7, and 7. He had entered the lineup, but for him to do that in his rookie season as a starter on this big of a stage was super impressive. There was no Dort in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is one of the more memorable games. And each of these games, like that I've picked so far, like the New Orleans game and the LeBron game, and even your game, based on how they were playing previously, they're all these games where they just exceed expectations. Whatever you were expecting of them going in, they're going to far surpass that.
Yeah.
And they consistently did that over and over again this season.
Yeah. That was such a fun game to watch.
Because they didn't win. It wasn't fluky. Like they didn't win a fluke game. They genuinely were better than the Lakers that night. And with everything going on, we're able to shut it out, and everyone performed well. Like no one wilted in the spotlight.
Yeah. And Russ was still on that team too, who played really well that night.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Russ coming off the bench for the Lakers in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, they had just started to reform their roster a little bit. Like Pat Bev was still on the roster, but like they had Rui. They had just like made the trade for Rui, who started. So yeah, that was big. It was good. I think people recognize like J-Dub. That was a big moment for him. Obviously a massive moment for Shea, just because of the way he played down the stretch. And then Giddey was great. Joe was great. That was a very fun game. And it was cool because you knew the next day that the topic of conversation on every show or podcast or whatever was going to be about LeBron breaking the record. But then like you knew that just like in the background, they were always going to be talking about, but this Thunder team, tell me about what you thought about this Thunder team, And so Thunder fans just the whole day got to kind of bask in that a little bit. So that was really, really cool. Okay. Another nomination early on in the season. The Thunder played the Dallas Mavericks, and they came off the back-to-back home wins against the Clippers, but still hadn't started the season very well. This game looked like it was going nowhere until Isaiah Joe, who had just really not played until this game, entered and got the green light and won the game for them.
Second defender again at Gilgis Alexander. Isaiah Joe underneath. And a layup falls for Darius Baisley, who has 15 points tonight. Wore out Memphis that night, winning by 41. But they've been in a dogfight tonight with the Thunder as Isaiah Joe under the defense. Oklahoma City has 2 timeouts. They're not taking one. A 3-point game. Isaiah Joe ties it.
He's got it right now.
That'll help. Took his eye off the ball. Isaiah Joe at the end of the shot clock.
What? Get it out of his hand.
Isaiah Joe calling for it. Man, what did Dallas do to this guy in the pass?
I wanted to find the Dallas commentators just because they're just like, the ball hits Joe's hands there in overtime. They're just like, oh no.
They're very nice and appreciative of how good he was doing.
It was so good. That game was unbelievable because it was a game that I promise you many people just turned off. Like they just thought, yeah, there's no way like we're winning this game. And I think they were down 13. It just felt like, yeah, this is over. And then they just put Joe in. He only played in this game. Joe played 9 minutes and 4 seconds. And
the crazier part is that he only had 3 threes. Because in my memory, it's like he must have hit 5 threes.
Yeah, he only had 4 shots.
Yeah.
But he hit all of them. He hit every single one. Went to the free throw line, hit 4 free throws. I mean, he was 100% from everything. Had 15 points, 2 boards, 1 assist in 9 minutes in this game. Just crazy. And it was this was also a game where no J-Dub, no Giddey in this game.
J-Dub played in this game.
Oh, he came off the bench. That's where I'm not seeing him. Yeah. This is how early it was in the season.
This was actually like his first good game because he played 5 minutes in the opener, then didn't play for their next 4 games. And then he got 26 minutes in this game and had 13, 3 and 3 with 4 steals. And the next game, which they would play in Orlando, would end up being his first start of the season. So this game, in addition to being the Isaiah Joe game, was also like the first good J-Dub game.
Yeah,
that we saw.
Yeah, true.
And the other crazy thing, I think this game is worth watching just because I feel like all the rest of the ones, especially the ones I picked, are towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of fun to go back and see what Mark was doing early in the season. Like the fact that J-Dub was coming off the bench after having not played for 4 games. Like there was no Giddey. 4th straight start for Trey Mann in this one.
Yeah.
Like I do think it's a good reminder that like, yes, we were hyped for Trey Mann, but also like he was playing minutes at the beginning of the season. And he was playing well in a lot of those games. So that whole thing with Trey Mann kind of got off to a good start. It just later kind of fell off. But I think those 3 games, the play-in LeBron game and the Dallas game, are like locks.
Yeah.
And then it's like where you go with your last 2.
Yeah.
So one of my last 2 is the Sixers win, which I think might actually be their best win of the season when you factor in the opponent, because this was only 2 nights after playing that national TV game against Miami, which was a miserable game. And so they have to fly from Miami up to Philly. The Sixers are healthy. After this loss, Philly would win 7 straight. That would become 14 of 17. That would become 23 of 29. Like after this game, Philly would go on a crazy winning streak. They weren't on a back-to-back. They weren't returning from a road trip. Their previous game was also in Philly. And the Thunder came in against a fully healthy, like James Harden played well. Joel Embiid had 30 and 10. Like it wasn't fluky in any way. And they win 133 to 114. Just like blow the doors off the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
SGA has 37 points, 16 of 16 from the line. It was just a wildly impressive game. Another one where you're just not expecting it because they're on a road trip. They just had a tough loss against Miami, and you're playing a healthy Sixers team who's about to go on this like crazy run. I mean, they were one of the best, if not the best, second half team of the last season. And for them to do that against a healthy Sixers team was just very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, they were awesome in that game. Trey Mann was really good in that game, if I remember right. Yeah, he had 14 points off the bench.
Yeah.
It was a very impressive. It was one of those where you're just waiting the whole time for the Sixers to just like snatch the game from them. And it just never happened. Like they were just really, really good. I think the second quarter, they beat them 32-22, and then essentially just kept a hold of the lead the rest of the game. And yeah, that was a very impressive win. Very impressive win. Okay, another nomination for me is this is a game that I would say is a glimpse into the future, if you will, where they played against the Utah Jazz at home. They had lost all of their games out of the All-Star break heading into this game. I think they lost 5 in a row, and then they won. They played 2 games against the Jazz at home. They won both of them. This is the second one that they played against the Jazz. And what was just so impressive was just the way that Shea, J-Dub, and Giddey all played. J-Dub and Shea both had 30 in this game, which I think makes it really fun to watch. And then Giddey had 24, 9, and 9 in this one. So this was just like a really fun game to rewatch, just from the standpoint of, hey, these are like the guys. This is like the 3 of the 4 guys that we think are going to be the core of the roster. And they're just performing at such a high level. Shea was 17 of 19 from the free throw line in this game. J-Dub had 32 points on 15 shots. And they were just ultra impressive against Utah. And Utah in this game was not great. Like they were not playing well. And they played a lot of players that just didn't deserve to play games, like a lot more Johnny Juzang than you would think in this game. But the Thunder, like stars, played well. It's like a fun late season game to watch.
Yeah, so I think that's plenty of games for Luke. I had one more game, which was the Knicks game, where the Knicks scored 48 in the first quarter. You wouldn't want to watch that. But after that, it was a very good game for the Thunder, and everyone played good. In fact, JRE had 17 points in that game. But they outscored the Knicks 86-58 over the second and third quarters. They scored 43 points in both the second and third quarters. So it was just an offensive explosion.
That was the giddy game.
That was the giddy game. So I think those are some good highlights.
Well, we got it. There's one more that we have to include.
What?
You just have to. I can't believe that we haven't said anything about this yet. It's the Wizards game winner. You don't remember this? Okay, I got.
Remember.
2 to tie, 3 to take the lead. Shea checks, steps back, 3-point shot on the way. He's good with 1.1 seconds left.
Did I just say that the Thunder have been stellar in set pieces? And if you want to see a set piece executed to perfection, this is it. I mean, you got to put the balls in the hands of the right man. And the right man is that man right there in blue, wearing number 2. As he just splashes the tray ball.
Almost identical.
You don't remember that? This was early.
Even rewatching it now, I have no memory.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, this was early on in the season. They won 121-120.
I actually remembered Baze's outfit more than the shot.
Really?
He was wearing like a vest with nothing underneath. And I was like, oh, I kind of remember Baze.
This was one of the first nights, and Shea like made big headlines for this one. People were really talking about Shea because he had 42, 6, and 7 in this one. And it was one of his like best individual scoring nights of the season and was just unbelievable in that game, and like hit the game winner, kind of carried the team the entire season or the entire game. And that was a big one for Shea and the Thunder. So that's also a nomination. I can't believe you don't remember that. That was a big one.
I'm sorry.
That was a big one.
Okay, so Luke, you got a lot of you had hours of basketball to watch. So report back. Let us know which one was the best.
Yeah, Shea had multiple 40-point games. His season high was 44. I think he did that twice. Did it against Portland. And then I think he maybe did it against the Pelicans. Yeah, and against the Pelicans, which in a game that they lost 44, 10, and 6 against the Pelicans. But yeah, there's some rewatchable games. Let us know. You can let us know in the chat. The 150-point game from Ball Punyon.
Yeah, I
Celtics.
looked at that game. That game is just so ridiculous. It's like it turned into not a basketball game at some point. I mean, it is very fun just to see the Thunder just completely obliterate a team. But it did feel like a little exhibition-y at some point because it was just so stupid.
Yeah.
But they scored a lot of points. There was another game too I was looking at. Oh, the Clippers game towards the end of the season.
Yes, I was about to bring this up because
But then I looked at the box score and I saw that OKC shot 27% from three and the Clippers shot 19%. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a good watch.
Well, it's just the end of it.
The end of it is great, but
Yeah.
it sounded, looking at the box score, the rest of the game was disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, Shea had 30, J-Dub had 20, but then like everybody else seemed to really struggle in this one. But yeah, just like the heroics from Dort in that game were just unbelievable. It was so much fun.
He also injured PG, not on purpose, obviously, but that was the game PG got injured in.
Yep.
But he still played 34 minutes, so it wasn't like a fluke win. I mean,
yeah,
PG still was out there for most of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, the way that Lou locked down Kawhi, and it was funny. I remember we podcasted about it probably the next morning, where Kawhi was so concerned with getting Lou off of him and getting the Giddey switch that he didn't get a shot off before regulation. Like the buzzer went off before he even shot the ball.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. Yeah, that I was at that Celtics game. I actually took my kids to that game, and I was super bummed because in that game, Shea got sick like that day and couldn't play. And then it was just a bummer because he thought, okay, now like I remember I took my two older sons and two of their friends, and I looked at them, I was like, sorry guys, like this might be a shellacking from the Celtics. And then it became like a game that I think that they will remember like in their Thunder fandom like forever because they had so much fun. There's so many dunks, so many made threes. It was just such a fun atmosphere to be at. But it's hard for me to nominate a game like that as rewatchable, similar to why I picked that last Jazz game, just because I want to watch the best players be at their best. You know, if I'm going to rewatch something, I don't necessarily want to go and see just kind of like this fluky game that even though like the Thunder played really well, I don't necessarily want to watch a game that is not like replicable. Like I want to see like a glimpse into the future of like what these guys can be.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a question on Reddit that I liked from Big Daddy Juno. What was an NBA opinion that was once seen as unpopular, but is now widely accepted?
Yeah.
And so I asked people on Twitter, listeners, what is a Thunder-centric answer for this question? What is a Thunder opinion that was once seen as unpopular, but is now widely accepted? I mentioned earlier, the one that for me immediately popped to mind was how we thought about Shea. And there was a few people, NBA Trio K saying Shea is the franchise player. At Sam Presti GM, SGA is the timeline. At WT _sports guy, SGA is a first team All NBA caliber player.
Yeah.
And then and this one I think really sums it up well. At K Bellinger 12, SGA was more of a Robin than a Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much talk, and I'm mainly thinking about you and me about like, you know, what player on a championship team, best player on a championship team is Shea. And it felt like over the course of both the triple guard year and then the next year, it was like, yeah, maybe he could be like the third best player on a championship team. Then it was he could be the second best player on the championship team. And then we eventually got to the point. And I definitely know that there are Thunder fans who were higher on Shea like from the jump, who were saying these things, whether it's as simple as like he could be an all-star. I don't know if anyone was saying like he could be a legit MVP candidate, which he was last year. I mean, he was fifth in MVP voting.
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone saying that. But if you had said that, that would definitely have been unpopular back when he first showed up in OKC. And it is now definitely widely accepted. So that was the first one that came to my mind, and a lot of other people shared that as well. So I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Because, I mean, I think that we push back on that quite a bit, thinking that like the best player on the Thunder is going to be one of these draft picks in the next, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, definitely.
And it really wasn't. I mean, I think we still thought that maybe it was going to be, and the truth is, it's unlikely, but it's not impossible that like one of these guys becomes like the best player on the team, but I still it'll probably end up being Shea, just because the bar to become like all NBA first team is pretty ridiculous. And if you had multiple players that do that, then you're going to be a title contender. But like if J-Dub or Chet or even Giddey became like a really great player in this league, like they're all still young enough to where things could change. But obviously like Shea is the guy.
A more recent one, at Evan ETM said playing without a true center.
Yeah.
I think I think we were, some of us, were maybe a little too obsessed with like finding another center over these last few years, and then seeing how well they perform with Kenrich as a small ball center last year. I do feel like it has become much more accepted that like Chet might just be the only center on this team going forward. I mean, we'll see what happens with my guy Garuba or someone like Jay Will, playing a backup role. But it will be interesting to see how many of their non-Chet minutes are small ball minutes.
Yeah,
because they did have so much success, and I think people would be more open to that now than they might have been, a year ago even.
Yeah, I mean, the league is just leaning skill, and the problem with a lot of these bigs is that most of them aren't skilled, and that's why, like, you hear the Cavs are willing to trade Jared Allen, and like the Hawks would love to get rid of Clint Capella, and like Nurkic is probably a different case, just because he has a bloated contract and isn't very good anymore. But there's just all these bigs that are available that could be had, and nobody wants them, And so that's why I would like pump the brakes on Walker Kessler, like, because Kessler doesn't pass and he can't shoot. He's a really good defender, and that's great. And I think he'll have a good career. I think he'll play in the league for a long time. But the league is just leaning away from those kind of players that are just like drop coverage bigs that don't really do anything else well. And the Thunder are definitely like pushing all toward that. They have got all these big guards. They've got Chet. They have a guy like Jay Will, who is like a legitimately good passer from the big man position. I think you have to have some kind of like elite skill on offense, whether that's passing or shooting or whatever it is, in order to make it as a big. And like, obviously Embiid and Jokic and all those guys like that are going to exist in whatever league, it is. But just your run-of-the-mill center that we've thought of for years and years and years, I just wonder if those guys like start to fade away. Just like, I mean, for years there were just guys that made it in the league because they were big, just because they were massive guys. And a lot of that was like every team needed some like Shaq kind of stopper. And the guys that stopped him the best, or at least came close to it, were just massive dudes that were super strong. And slowly those guys just didn't make the league anymore. Like, we see a guy like Nemias Queta, who just got signed by the Kings. Like, he's not going to play a lot for the Kings. But back in the day, a guy like that would have maybe started in the NBA just because he's massive. And like, those guys, you don't do it anymore. So like, unskilled big men, I think, are going to start to be a thing of the past too. And some of that is just the way the guys train, is that there's going to be less of those guys that make the league, just because there's going to be more big guys that are skilled in the league. You see it with Chet, you see it with Wemby. Like, those are like the beginning of something that I think is going to be real in the league, where just you have these big guys that can kind of do everything.
Yeah, I think there'll always be a place for someone like Kevon Looney. But his future is probably in most games playing like 15 max 20 minutes,
like a backup center. Yeah
But he gets like, he is their starter, but he isn't usually in their closing lineups. So I think there's always a place for those guys, but yeah, like in terms of what you're actually doing at the end of the games, it's probably true. It's probably true.
Yeah.
At ThunderFan96, Melo should have come off the bench. I would say that would have been very unpopular back at the start of the OK3 season. It would have sounded crazy. I mean, it was brought up to Melo and sounded crazy, but it's not like any of us really would have agreed with that at the time. I remember at the time thinking, like, that is kind of a weird question. Why would Melo come off the bench? Who else? Who was going to start over Melo? That's crazy.
Turns out by the end of this rant on that team.
I know, but by the end of the season, it was like, he obviously should have been coming.
Yeah, he needs to come off the bench. It would have been a great role for him, and
yeah,
he obviously was just unwilling to accept it, which is why they had to trade him after the season. And I remember sitting next to Fred during that press conference at the end of the season where he's just unwilling to even discuss it, which is why they found a landing spot for him. And in hindsight, like, it's not like Schroeder's like some like incredible player, but like that trade was pretty unbelievable to get a like unhappy, to trade an unhappy Carmelo Anthony and get back a player that played very well for the Thunder
and got them a first-round pick.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Another one that is kind of the same vein where it seems obvious now, but I think it would have been unpopular at the time, from Zach Deeg. Serge should have played the 5 and Perk off the bench. Like, it's easy for me now to look back at that team and be like, wow, they might have had like the perfect small ball roster at the time.
Yeah.
But I don't actually remember a ton of conversation about that at the time. I'm sure there were some smart people who were like, oh man, I wish we could see more small ball with Serge.
Yeah.
But the idea of like Serge should be the full-time center and Perk should be his backup, that was not a popular sentiment.
Yeah. Well, the league was still really big at the time.
They were, but if they had done that, man,
they should.
They were big, but they were like a year away from it not being that way.
I think the only problem is just Serge didn't have necessarily like the skill of, like, he was a good weak side shot blocker, but was he going to be able to like quarterback the defense from the center position? Like, I'm not so sure that he could have done that. So I just wonder, like, logistically, if it could have worked. I think like on paper, like, it makes a ton of sense. I just wonder how well it could have worked. Because you think about the small ball centers that like are incredible, like Draymond Green is like one of the smartest defenders to ever play the game. Like Serge is like he's a good player, but I just don't think he was like going to quarterback the defense. Even Perk was like better at like communication and stuff like that than Serge was. But I get it. Like, I totally get it as to why you would want them to do that. And they should have done it more. They should have traded Perk. They should have traded for Brook Lopez. Like, they should have done a lot of different things.
Let's see here. A few more. At Twice Godly, trying to think of something no one else has said. Ton of people on here in February 2021 that were convinced Teo Maledon was the point guard of the future. Lol. Went back and saw some comps between him and Tony Parker being casually discussed.
Yeah.
That was a time. Now, I wasn't in that group, but I will tell you, at that time, I remember coming on the pod and like saying that he was going to be a career backup and feeling bad, like not wanting to say that because I knew that it would get pushed back, even though like saying Teo is going to have like a long career as a backup point guard was actually like pretty nice thing to say. It's actually it turns out, one of the kinder things you could have said about him. Yeah, but at the time, every time I would say it, I was like, "Oh man, I hope there's not Teo stands." I don't even know if Teo stands existed, but in my head there were Teo stands at the time, and I was worried about upsetting them for some reason. So I do think that was one. I don't know how many people were that high. I mean, I remember the Tony Parker thing just because he played for Tony Parker's team or whatever.
Played for his team, yeah.
But I don't know how many people actually believe that based on his play. I'm sure there were some, though.
He had some nice games, but also it was in the season of somebody has to score the points.
It was. Yes, there were a lot of guys we kind of loved that season. Shout out Svi.
Shout out Svi. Svi was really fun.
This one is a good one. Now, I would not fall into this, but at number 029, Darius Baisley lacked the style to fit with the Thunder's coaching philosophy, and it was inevitable he would be moved on from.
Yeah.
I think that is totally true, and because he was the draft before they really made the switch, because at that time they were still thinking. I think Russ was still on the team.
PG and Russ were still on the team when they made the pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a much different philosophy. They probably weren't thinking about trading Russ and PG. And so they draft Darius Baisley. And I do think that was the key. Like, he really didn't fit that new Thunder style, which would come in the next draft with guys like Poku or even Teo. And I do think that's true. Like, Darius Baisley, like, the reason it didn't work out, one of the reasons it didn't work out, is he like never really fit what they were going to do going forward. And it was inevitable that he would be moved on. So yeah, I think that would have been unpopular to say back at the time. And there was a time when, sorry, my voice is going crazy. Hold on.
Yeah. I think some of it too was like when they drafted him, Billy Donovan was still the coach. And the first team that he played on, and he was decent.
Yeah.
With that team was Chris Paul, Schroeder, SGA, Gallo, Steven Adams. Like, that was the team, and they were still, if you look at him and a guy like Terrence Ferguson, like, they're not dissimilar as players, like theoretically good defenders, maybe guys that if they can both hit a corner three, then they become valuable players on these like Westbrook-led teams. Those are the kind of guys that Russ liked to play with. We're like uber athletic guys that were like defense first and that could hit open corner threes. And like, that's theoretically what like Baisley was going to be and like what Terrence Ferguson was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, neither of them clearly fit. And, Baisley's in Brooklyn now. I don't know how much of a chance that he'll get there just because they have a lot of guys. But I wish him well. I hope things go well for him in Brooklyn. I hope he gets a chance, because I do think he's like he's a good basketball player that I think can be a good defender and can be versatile. He just needs the right kind of system, and maybe Brooklyn's that. I don't know.
Okay, this one, I don't know if it's widely accepted, but it definitely would have been unpopular. At Ben Vance says the most obvious answer here is that Presti should have kept Harden and traded Russ. I do think that's probably true, although not for the obvious reason, which is that Harden and KD probably make more sense long term. I do have concerns about Harden. We've seen what he's done in the playoffs. I don't think that keeping Harden and trading Russ is a guarantee of anything necessarily. However, you get way more for Russ if you trade him at that time.
Yeah, that would be the thing. Is like, you probably do get, if you want like deal, like you get,
or like Klay Thompson, like
one Klay.
Maybe you would have gotten one of those guys.
That's like that would be the thing that would push it over the top. Is just that you're getting a lot more, and the guys that the true guys that they went after, they would have gotten them if they traded Russ.
Yeah.
But Russ also, like, people forget how good Russ was during those years and how he willed them to a lot of wins, like playoff wins. Like, are we sure that James Harden hits all three of those free throws there at the end of that Clippers game? Like, did they make it past the Clippers if James Harden is the one at point guard and not Russ? Like, I don't know. Like, Russ had like some serious balls in those games. And Harden, he shrinks from the moment in almost every single way, where Russ just does not.
Yeah.
And Russ is not as skilled as Harden is, but when it comes down to like trying to win games and like try and in just like that pocket of time, like, I'm just not convinced that like they would have won many more games if it was Harden instead of Russ. I think that is some weird hindsight to me. Now, if Harden allowed you to keep Kevin, then maybe yes. But also, watching the three of their careers like unfold, as we kind of like back away.
It's hard to believe that either of them would have stayed.
I just don't think either of them would have. Like, you really think that both those guys would have stayed in the same franchise when both of them have moved on from many franchises at this point?
Yeah.
I think what the Thunder did, what I think what the mistake really was not being willing to take Harden into restricted free agency and willing to take him into that next season. I think they should have taken him into that next season. And you could have seen the improvement. Then you could have traded him for something a lot more, just knowing that he had made a big jump. Or just like running it back and just trying like one more time, taking him into restricted free agency, seeing what the team would do, matching, sign and trade, whatever you want to do. But that to me was the mistake. It was not keeping Harden over Westbrook. Westbrook is he's similar to like a guy like Allen Iverson or somebody where like the history is like rewritten on them a little bit as to like what they were. I mean, they won playoff series because of Russell Westbrook at times.
Definitely. So, I do think it's fair to say that the type of guys they were drafting, it would have been easier if Harden was there. Like, you wouldn't have to worry as much about playing Andre Robertson because you would have shooters because Harden would be there. You wouldn't have to worry as much about playing Robertson and Steven Adams on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
Like long term. Like, I do think it would have given them more flexibility, but I do think it would have been short lived. I don't think either of those guys would have ended up staying in OKC.
Yeah.
Blood Phantom 81 said 2016 was the last year I was happy. Hey, I saw this so and I want to see now obviously we made a bet on the previous pod. Alex, $400 bet. This is from Kirk T. Who plays more, Bays or Simmons? Man. Whew. Well, first of all, I love betting another $400. And I might go Ben Simmons now. I might switch it up. I know I bet Isaac last time. I might go Ben Simmons now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the safer bet, which seems ridiculous, but I do think that's the safer bet. There.
One more sort of related, but not really. At _Shaquille_. Dipping into the luxury tax was almost taboo during the Harden fiasco. It's almost necessary for continued success now. The second time around, all the main pieces will get paid. I will say, I don't remember. I'm sure there were people defending the Thunder from a financial perspective at that time, like Thunder fans saying like, hey, we're a small market. Like, we have to manage finances long term. That would be like very unpopular now.
Yeah.
Like, if they made cost cutting moves or gave up on guys specifically because of tax concerns, I think that would get a lot more heat in 2023 than it would have gotten in 2012.
Yeah.
2012. I think people were more accepting of that idea because there also weren't as many teams paying the tax, and even the teams that were paying the tax weren't paying as much.
Yeah.
And now it's become so much more commonplace, and it's become, like Shaquille said, like more accepted that you have to do this for continued success. And so I think that's a really good one as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Yeah, I mean, if the Thunder let go of J-Dub over like $5 million,
we would be pissed.
We would
in fact, I don't know. I'm so interested in this because somebody mentioned the Harden trade just in general, but I always bring up the fact that Royce Young wrote an article right after the Harden trade, like a negative one. Like he was not a fan of that trade at all.
Yeah.
I wonder how it would have been perceived by Thunder fans if social media was the way it was now back in 2012. Because you look around Twitter, and I just happened to notice this because there was some Rockets account yesterday that was saying something. But sometimes the biggest fan accounts for different teams are the accounts that are like pushing out propaganda for their team every single day, just nonstop.
Oh my gosh.
And doing like these like little engagement tweets just to get like their fans talking, kind of like what I did with this tweet. But like those tend to be like the biggest fan accounts. And so I almost wonder if the Harden trade did happen, would it actually have more defenders from Thunder fans nowadays, just because there feels like so much more incentive and pressure to like defend your team outside of a few fan bases, like I think of the Knicks are very willing to like crap on their team. Bulls fans who have just like been worn to the ground. Like there are fan bases where it is more accepted to be negative about your team. But I think for a lot of teams right now on social media, it feels like there is kind of like this bubble that forms around each team. And like you want to be positive and you don't want to be the person that's saying the negative thing.
Yeah.
And I think after everything we've gone through over these last couple of years where Presti really has looked like a genius with all of his different moves, if there was a move like that, I actually think the response would be more positive within the fan base than we would expect.
Yeah, I think that might be true. Yeah, because there's like this weird competition that goes on. Like Twitter has become like a competition of who can find the angle where everything is about the Thunder and it's very good about the Thunder. If it's like a move that like some other team does, be like, well, the Thunder did this and this and this and this and this, and it's like let me see if I can.
And this is like every fan base does this.
Every fan base does it. Yeah, and it's these like fan accounts.
And it's only going to get worse if Twitter really does start paying people. Like those will become the dominant accounts because you'll be paid based on engagement. And the things that get engagement right now.
Oh, I know.
Like,
they like straight up annoy me.
there's this guy, this like I forget his name. He has some Twitter account, but he's more like music focused. But his like whole deal is just doing like prompt tweets where he'll have some tweet that was like, what's the first album that made you fall in love with music or something? Yeah. And of course he gets a ton of engagement, but if that was a one-off tweet, okay, fine. Like, yeah, that's an interesting question. Sure. What do people think? But it's like every fifth tweet is like a prompt like that. And I'm finding like so many more accounts that are doing that because it's either like you have to be really good at memes, like a Josiah Johnson type of guy, where you can come up with those like continuously, or you have to like do these engagement tweets. And I feel like Twitter is just going to become only that. It'll just be like memes and engagement tweets.
Yeah. I use those from time to time, like just as like genuinely like, what are people thinking?
Yeah.
What is like the Thunder fan base?
Hey, but when you're getting paid, Andrew, that's going to start being all your tweets.
Hey,
you're going to have to.
Can't wait for that to be my job. Just to ask Thunder engagement questions. And just raking in the cash with my engagement questions.
That X cash.
Okay,
that was about it. There are a few other ones. I appreciate everyone who did respond.
Yeah, it's great. Great engagement tweet.
Hey, thanks for helping us get a segment out of it. I did want to bring up one more. JSN DVS. Who said, I mean, it's got to be KD is not nice. It was never a popular slogan or sentiment until it became true. I guess he tried to warn us. Basically saying that, like, KD is not nice is unpopular because we thought he was so nice.
Too nice.
But now it actually makes a lot of sense in retrospect. Like, he wasn't nice.
He was not nice.
KD is not nice to us.
He is not nice.
So I like that one, too.
That is a good one. That's a really good one. Okay. Well, it is August 9th, and we still have a while before we hit training camp. We're still going to have podcasts for you guys every week. If you haven't listened to the podcast with Mayor Holtz on that dropped Monday, you should go listen to that. I really like the whole like purpose of me having him on was like I wanted to help arm our Thunder contingent with just some reasons why the arena should be built and maybe arguments against like the strongest arguments against it. So go listen to that. I thought it was really good. He was great. I thought Mayor Holt was great. So go listen to that. And yeah, we'll be back again on Friday.